The time is now 5:30, and we will call the meeting to order. We'll start off with our business meeting. Please do I have a approval of the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll
second.
Okay, I have an approval and a second, or a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
We're
opposed?
already on.
Okay, I don't have to push a
We're
button.
on.
Already on, right?
Yep. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. No nays, so motion carries. Please rise for the pledge. Mrs. Grant, will you lead us?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Informational reports, we'll start with Dr. J.
All right, Madam President, members of the board and guests, thank you for coming tonight. Just a couple of things. First one I have is I'm very excited that next week we will have our annual Fort McDowell Recreation Center basketball game, which I started as principal years ago, and then the last few years with COVID, it hasn't happened. So we're excited to bring that back. So all of our boys and girls basketball games next Saturday will be played out at the Fort McDowell Recreation Center. The first time we did this in 2019, it was just a tremendous atmosphere and game. People were very excited about that, and so for us, this is a great opportunity to continue that, and we're excited to have that starting back up on Saturday. So that'll be coming up. Just quick update on Orcutt Winslow. We've met with the architect, and we've sent them basically information that, a big picture vision of what we're trying to accomplish. They're now taking that information and putting it together, and we'll be meeting weekly from here on out to talk about progress. And the hope is that we'll be able to get some renderings of some of these things soon for the public to see and take some feedback on. So we're moving forward positively. And again, most of the work at the sites is outside the classrooms themselves. So even if we're behind schedule, we'll be able to still have a successful opening of school next year. So we're right on track with that. I did coffee with the superintendent this morning from 9 to about 10:30, and we also had we offer a Zoom option for parents that can't come in person, and we had good discussion, and it's a great opportunity for me to take feedback. So we did do that today, and we'll have another one in 3 weeks. And lastly, just happy to share that we are going to do a staff picnic this year for the first time. That is a way to kind of build some continuity between the sites. And we've located a day in March that will work for principals. Moving forward, our hope is that through the calendar committee, we'll be able to in the future have a calendar day where it's a teacher work day and staff picnic on the same day, so that it's a little easier if people know it's coming. So special thanks to our local organizations that are helping with this. Kiwanis is going to be sponsoring it and providing all the food for the event. They're going to bring out their food truck and make sure they take care of all of our staff. So.
And Rotary's doing pretzels.
And Rotary's doing pretzels. And we'll have others, I think, step up as well to make it a really good opportunity. We'll have some games and different activities for the event. And hopefully it'll be the start of something that can be a lasting tradition in the district. So with that, I conclude my comments.
Are there any questions regarding Dr. J's comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to governing board reports. Mrs. Settle?
I attended Coffee with Kane. We did some site tours last Friday, and it was fun. Got to bump into one of my kiddos in the hallway unexpectedly, so it was enjoyable. So just enjoying learning all of the things as a new board member.
Mr. Sarr?
One comment, 20-0.
Basketball.
Yep.
Okay, Ms. Reed?
I too attended some of the trainings and the site tours. I thought that was great, and I appreciate it being put together for us. That was important. I attended the Coffee with Kane via Zoom, which I love that option because knowing parents with busy schedules, that's a nice way for us to be able to be aware of what's going on. And I love that you are open to take feedback. I think that's great. I was also able to attend the local Tea Party hosted Tom Horn here, and I was able to attend that and open discussion. I thought that that was great, especially since he's at the state level fighting for what we need to get accomplished. So, okay, thank you, Mrs. Acker.
I also went on the tour, and which was great. Really appreciate it, and all the different meetings we've had since last meeting here. I couldn't attend today's meeting, but I went to the coffees with all three principals, which was really nice to see all the different areas. And Saturday night, I went to the basketball game. I got there, my husband and I got there for the end of the girls and watched the whole boys, and it was incredible. It really was great to see. It was nice.
Thank you. I too attended the tours last Friday. Even though I'm a long timer here, it was still nice to walk the campuses. I always love to see the kiddos and all the great things that are going on our campus. Most of us attended the procurement training, Finance 101, and then we just had a training session on open meeting law. So it's always good to get refreshers and just be able to ask more questions. That was it. Next up is the consent agenda, which for this meeting only includes personnel action. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Krista, did you get all the votes?
I heard, as I was typing, I
Okay.
heard Lillian, Dana, you, Madison, were you and I, Libby, were you and?
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
Okay. It's hard when we don't have our regular mics. So I want to make sure she gets, anytime we need to approve something, yeah. Next up is the action items regarding renaming of the preschool building. Dr. J?
Yeah, Madam President, members of the board and guests. As I mentioned in our last meeting, that we feel it's important to give the new preschool its own identity and to not have two buildings in the same town named McDowell Mountain Elementary School. So with that, we took feedback from our staff, and through that feedback, we came to Little Falcons Preschool, and I think it's a cute name for building that Falcon pride from a very young age. We moved years ago, all the sites from being the Bobcats and the Jaguars and all to Falcons, and being a small town in such a small district that even at an early age, having the Falcons in the name I think is important. And if approved, we'll move to work with a logo design to come up with something that also is very cute, that just brings about some joy when you think about where you want to send your child for preschool. That Little Falcons is an option. So that'll take any questions.
Are there any questions regarding the name change?
I have one. In here, it says that the preschool will run independently. That just means it's like its own thing. It's not going to be separated from the district in any way?
No, it just means that it's its own site now. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I move that the board approve Little Falcons Preschool to be the name of the new preschool for the 23-24 school year. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the business meeting portion of our meeting. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the business meeting?
I move that we adjourn the business meeting.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll go right into our work study session. For new board members, I know you've attended, but work study sessions are meant to be more of an open discussion On items on our agenda, we do limit the time, so the work study session will end at 7 o'clock, so we will move forward with public comments. Krista, do we have any public comments? Okay. Information discussion items, the first up is Avid field trip to Flagstaff. Dr. J?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board and guests, this is a request for our Avid classes to attend a field trip to Flagstaff to tour Northern Arizona University. I've encouraged the Avid program to do more of these site visits because I truly have seen the impact that it has when kids visit a large, comprehensive university campus and start to dream and start to think about, can I see myself here? I love the idea as a lumberjack myself of going to NAU to check it out. I do encourage them to try to get to all 3 state universities, and GCU would be my hope. But as they're developing and getting back into some things like field trips that have probably been paused, I would imagine, the last couple of years, I think it's great for the kids to take a look at Northern Arizona University. So I do recommend approval of the field trip.
Okay, this is just a work study, so it's just an information discussion, so there's no approval for tonight. But does anyone have any questions, comments regarding the Avid field trip?
They're day trips, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's always great for any kid to go visit the campuses and see what the opportunities are, just like we would visit EVIT. So, I think it's great. And their packet looks nice and complete with the behavior and the medical release, so that's all great.
So this one's obviously for the Avid program students. Do we do anything like this for the other students?
We have not. Part of being an Avid is that you do visit campuses, this is, a way of helping students who, maybe college seems a little out of reach to find that extra help to get closer to where they want to be. So, as an opportunity for us to do that, possibly. We've never done that, though, as far as I know, as a school district. It's opened it up to anyone to go. We do, for EVIT, do something like that because it's a local trip to Mesa. But no, this would be something that the Avid program is doing.
But it's a good idea. I mean, back in the day, 60 years ago, when I took a tour, it was with your parents who were going to pay for it. And would it have been better to take a bus with the rest of the senior class or a group? I don't know, because parents are paying for it, so it worked out, I think, better that way. But anytime you get on a campus where you can see yourself a year or two down the road, it's a good incentive.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to incomplete grades. Dr. J, you want to discuss that?
Yeah, I'm going to actually defer to Mr. Alexander since he worked on this, so if you'd like to share.
So yeah, a few weeks ago, Dr. J had asked me to take a look at policies that other districts have in regards to incomplete grades. The 2 that I was able to find where it was actually discussed were, I think, Gilbert and Scottsdale. And their languages kind of vary. We've been in discussions as a district to have an incomplete grade policy, more specifically towards students who do not participate in reteach as assigned. We could assign incomplete grades for those. So the writing that you have in front of you is a compilation of policies that I've seen both in Gilbert and in Scottsdale, and then adding our own specific language as it relates to reteach.
Okay, does anyone have any questions regarding the incomplete grades?
Is there a percentage that we incur in this situation on a regular basis of our students? Is there a percentage of our students who are?
I think for missing a final exam or unable to complete assignments, it's a pretty low number. I know in larger districts, they We'll do that even with kids with Fs who are failing, give them another couple weeks. We chose not to go that path right now and just limit it to these bulleted points. But missing reteach, that number can vary. You know, when we first started reteach, I think that number would have been pretty high, but as time has gone on and kids understand what it is and the importance of it, I think it's probably relatively low. Because in addition to this, if passed, the hope would be that we would also offer makeup sessions and Saturday sessions so that they don't have to take it incomplete, so they can make up that time at other times. So in the past, we had Saturday catch-up rooms, and that was a way for you to get 3 hours, make up that time that was missing. And then once the teacher felt like, hey, you've made that effort, I will then release the grade. So it's basically giving our teachers a little bit more of, you know, reteach is not, it's not optional, you know, you have to come. And then we provide a bus, we provide communication out, and in return, you do need to come, or else there is a consequence. Now, going the behavior consequence will just cause a lot of additional work that's away from instructional leadership. And so we found that the incomplete grade speaks a little louder and allows for parents to also see where we're going, if approved, we'll work with Power School to be able to put the I in, so as parents check grades, they'll see that and they'll know there's some problem in the class, which can initiate conversation if they choose to, even though we'll be communicating out that they missed it, just another layer.
And maybe I missed it, but what's the status of an IEP in this regard?
You mean if
With incompletes, is there, if an IEP includes something that, an accommodation of some kind, is there something in there that addresses that? I didn't see.
Well, we always work with anybody who's on one, and we would, you know, right now, I don't believe we'd have a lot of flexibility. We'd have to do a grade change, so you would put whatever grades in to meet the deadline for rolling over Power School and getting the grades in, and then the teacher can go back and do a grade change. Now, that can happen all the way up until they graduate,
Right.
if a teacher of record wants to come back and do that. This would just eliminate that.
I just, something in the policy that would say we do adhere to IEPs or any other L504s or whatever it happens to be, just so it's there.
Mhm. Yeah, we can take that feedback. Sure.
And another thing with that, and I know we don't have too many ELL English language learners, but if we have any, say, at the high school level where they need a grade, is there any provision, you know, where I used to be, we would do an S or a U. If they didn't know enough English, but they were doing the work to their level, that way they pass.
We have pass as an option for grading.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we try not to use it because the goal is to, you know, get all students to where they're at the level they need to be at. I think the incomplete is more of a caring for kid issue here. Like, we're not gonna fail you at the semester if you have some of these things happening, but we're going to put the final grade in after a certain amount of time if it's not made up. So it's an opportunity to just give kids a little bit extra time if they need it.
So it discusses that the first 4 weeks of the following 9-week grading period, but then it goes on to say that students who miss the reteach sessions may receive an incomplete grade until the session is completed. Does that also encompass the 4-week time frame, or is that an indefinite period?
Chris, do you want to answer that one?
It would also be within that 4-week period. So it's specifically talking about the session that they're assigned for. So again, reteach is week to week.
Right.
So again, if they missed week 1 session, they need to get in and make that up. So yeah, it would just be for that one session, but for that whole week.
So maybe the wording should be something about reteach sessions may receive, if students who miss the reteach sessions may receive an incomplete grade until that reteach session is completed, just to make it clear.
Or that 4-week, yeah.
Sure.
And where does this leave kids that are working on independent study classes? Because like it was brought to my attention that even though it's an independent study, they're being held accountable for not being able to leave campus if the person in charge of independent study has deemed them not far enough along. Like, are we giving them incomplete grades? Like, how, where does that fall?
I think this is more specific to, because it would just be these bullet points.
Okay,
So what would happen in that situation, like an online class or independent studies, just like we have with eligibility, you know, the administrator can verify through teacher input that they're now in good standing. So like, we're talking about off-campus lunch, a student can, once they're told like, hey, you know, you're not qualifying for it, they would meet with that administrator, and then the administrator would verify that they're in good standing. So that wouldn't have any impact on their final grade.
What way are we reaching out to the parents? You said that we made contact before they check. It's not just on them to check and see that you include in there.
Yeah, so the way Reteach has always been set up is, you know, an email goes home saying you have it. So the parents know why they didn't come home from school, right? Then there's a email that goes out after, if, for the kids who didn't attend, to the parents saying you did not attend, and therefore you need to make up that time. But I've seen, like I said, I mean, the idea behind Reteach years ago was to do it in a time period that is on the student's time, okay? I just visited schools not long ago where they have advisory period or a time in the middle of the day to do these types of things, and they always turn into study halls, and they always turn into just not what it's envisioned to be. And so we took that knowledge up front and said, we're not even gonna go down that road. We're saying there has to be an advantage to doing it right the first time, and the advantage is I don't have to come back. I can move on with my day. As soon as we made students come back after school and have to sit through another session, the number went down by 80% in less than a month, okay? And so, but you still will have some students who just are not gonna show up, and so then you work with their coaches, their club sponsors, their administrator, their parents, but having one more thing in there to say that I can't give you a grade at this time because you've not completed this, it puts a little bit more, I think, of an emphasis on the student to make it right. And we're trying to teach them that you know, you want to make this situation right, so here's how you do that. So we'll take that feedback, we'll work it, we'll bring it back to you.
any other questions regarding the incomplete grades? No, okay.
Is that something that you're gonna want on the next agenda as an action item or as an information and discussion?
If they can make the changes, then it can come back as an action item, so. Okay. Policies advisory 739 to 741, which actually, Krista, I noticed there's actually more. There's 742 and 743 that are also policy advisories. Are we only talking about 739 to 741?
That's what we probably should do. It's on the
Yeah,
agenda.
I guess that's what we need to do.
Okay.
My apologies.
Okay. So, these are first reads, again, just for information discussion items. For anything that's an exhibit, we can, or a regulation, we have the option of using them or changing them to fit our district. Anything that's actually a policy, we cannot change. We should not change the actual policy, so. Okay, first up is policy 739, which has two new exhibits, IHAMBEA, Family Life Education, and IHAMBEB, Family Life Education. It says ASBA created exhibits to obtain mandatory parental consent if offering sex education curriculum and or referring students to sexually explicit materials. The policy was updated in August. The exhibits conform with the policy. And you can see the two exhibits that are there. One for parental consent form for sex ed curricula, and the other one is for instructional materials. Are there any questions or changes you would like to see on these two exhibits?
I have have a slight issue with the IHAMBEB and the term sexually explicit.
Okay.
As a parent, that would be exactly what I don't want my kids exposed to. I'm not necessarily against sex education, I just believe it should be taught in a way that's very clinical. So to me, when it says sexually explicit, it makes me question what kind of material it would be.
So, the board can wordsmith this, like I said, we can change those words to fit a more appropriate term for our district, so if you have a recommendation.
I don't know that I necessarily have a recommendation, but especially I would need to review the material in depth that we are using.
Well, it would depend on the grade.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure.
that's, yeah.
But I guess I just want parents to be informed as to what they're signing because, if we're presenting this as sexual education, again, I don't think it needs to be sexually explicit in any way. I have seen, the controversial posts about things that are pornographic essentially in nature. And so, yeah, I would want us to obviously not have that material. And so if it is just very clinical, I would want this form to reflect exactly what the parents are consenting to their children being exposed to.
Well, and it says that it may contain some material deemed sexually explicit material under the ARS. So it's already been, ARS already decided what was considered sexually explicit. So that's, that's already a list created. So it's not saying that we're gonna give them sexually explicit material. It's saying that ARS already created calling this sexually explicit. Do you have a copy of that policy? Of ARS? We should probably get that. It's ARS 15-120.03C. 120.03C, ARS. So we can get a copy of that and we can wordsmith it or look at it to see exactly what that says.
It's pretty short. Do you want me to plug in and put it on the screen?
Sure.
And I guess one of the questions that I would have is any of the material that we are using in any grade deemed sexually explicit? Or is it more clinical and could we word it to reflect that we're just teaching health and what goes along with sex ed in that realm?
I think that would come from, a letter from the principal about as they get close to doing that, providing how it's gonna be.
And it says it cannot use any sexually explicit material in any manner.
So then maybe we should have something like that for them to say that it's okay.
It's kind of like the COVID thing.
Yeah.
You can't give a COVID vaccine, but if you
you
give it,
do.
yeah.
Right.
Krista, would you be able to pull up 15-711, because it says except as prescribed in section.
Have you guys all read this? Or do you want to do something more to, maybe you're still reading?
I'm okay. Was just reading bullet points 1, 2, and 3 underneath C.
What was it, 15-711?
711.
Krista, can you make it just a little bit larger? I need your glasses.
Anybody, any bit of technical?
Well,
Yeah.
You'd have to,
What is it?
you have to do it on your whole Google, so
Well,
it,
you can do it on,
the Control Plus, right?
Or Control Plus?
I think so.
Do those.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I was thinking
Got it.
Google. Got it. Not a-
I learned something new. Okay, let me know when you need me to, move it up.
I know that we had the hearings for the, the curriculum, and that we did have it on display, but did we put out into the public more than just in the meeting that the material was on display? Was that sent out to
Yes.
people?
It was, sent out via, constant contact.
And in the exhibit, if we were using anything that was deemed sexually explicit based on the ARS, we would have to list that so that parents could look it up. So. Do we know if we have any, are we using anything in sex ed that violates that?
Is it possible to have this be a discussion item in the future?
Yeah. So can you send a copy of both of those to us?
Thank you.
So that we
You guys
can,
mind if I unplug?
no, go ahead.
Thanks.
So that we'll do a little bit more research. So 739 is gonna come back as another discussion item at a future date. Okay?
And you want the ARS 157-11 and then the other one?
Yep. Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Or do you want to refrain on anything else since it'll be back for a discussion? Okay. Or anything else that can be provided over before the next board meeting? Let Kristen know if there's something else you would like to see so that we can further that discussion. Okay. Next up is policy advisory number 740, which is new. It's an exhibit IJLE, library materials selection and adoption.
How often are we purchasing new library books? And is this going to be like a scrolling thing on our district
Well,
website?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything come through this year. We, as I mentioned earlier, our high school's not even using the library,
Right.
so that's why we're moving it. Now that it's, it's just the library's changed at different levels, what it was years ago, what it is today are different. So a lot of things are, accessed online now, so. At the younger grades, though, I have not seen any purchases come through. We've shared out the new laws with our staff and shared with them that, there should be, a committee that's looking at any purchases and go through there.
Is PTO still doing its book fair?
I don't believe they are this year.
Okay, so, because, yeah, that would be my only
At
thing
their
is that
Scholastic Book Fair?
it was
Yeah.
a Scholastic.
I
think
know
they're
they
doing-
talked about it being challenging for next year with the schools splitting, but
I would think that'd make it easier.
I don't want to be, I'm not certain, but I thought I remember a conversation where they were not doing it.
Well,
It may
if
have
they
been-
do,
it may
that
have-
would probably be the only time that there's like a bulk of new library books purchased, because PTO gives the librarian a certain dollar amount that they were able to purchase books through it's the credit that you get from having the book fair, so.
So we've moved to, even on like novels and things like that coming to the board, we're moving toward a committee that is, coming together to say, this is something we need. And then that committee has all gone through it and looked at it and said, this is what we want for this grade level, then it come, go through the rest of the process. So we're putting like an extra step in there, one, just to make sure that what we're buying is gonna be used, right? Because, a lot of times you buy a set of books and then teacher leaves and then uses them again. So part of it's really that is, we wanna make sure we're spending money correctly, and then two, just to make sure that as a collective group, we think this is, something we should have in our library or something we should have in our classes. So that's why I've not brought any books to you guys since this entire school year. Is, One, we haven't had a lot of requests, and the ones we've had, we said, we want to go through this process.
We looked into subscription services for novels and books.
We haven't this year, I have in the past, like through different reading software programs. There's one, I can't remember, oh, sorry. I can't remember the name of, there was one I was working with, I know Fort McDowell had purchased a license for it, and I was working with Yolanda at the high school years ago on, is that something maybe we want to purchase for students who are a little behind on reading, because it allowed for the book to be read, the words highlighted, and it had a pretty vast library of books in it, but we haven't looked at that in years.
Just for clarification, the committee to approve book lists, would that still, the list, would it still come to us as a
Of
board?
course, no, it'd just be, instead of like one person saying, I want to buy this, we're
Okay.
now saying a committee of people are saying, we want to buy this for this reason.
Oh, that's great.
And then it would go through the same process area, so it'd just be one additional step.
That's great. Thank you.
So this was to update or to add the exhibit. Does anyone have any issues with the exhibit? Just notifying parents that we're looking to purchase materials or library books on a certain date, that they'll be on the website, the opening and closing date. Okay, so that'll be on the next agenda for action. All right. Policy advisory number 741, policy JFABDA, admission of students in foster care. This is a regulation. The policy and regulations were updated to conform with the law that educating students in foster care is a collaboration between school child welfare agencies and ADE. Mandated collaboration includes assigning a district point of contact for children in foster care and notifying ADE of the district's point of contact assignee. Definitions of children in foster care and school of origin and best interest determination were amended or added to reflect the U.S. Department of Education non-regulatory guidance regarding students in foster care. Is there a discussion on the regulation? You can see where some items were lined through, so taking them out, and then the items that were added are now underlined. So like they took out the first A and changed what was B to A now. Children in foster care remain, and they took out are immediately enrolled in their school of origin for the duration of their time in care. So yeah, so you can go through.
Who is our point of contact for our district?
Chris.
And in the definitions, there were new definitions added, and other liaison was taken out, and now it's just a point of contact for children in foster care. Again, removing the word liaison throughout and putting in POC. Are there questions, discussions regarding this regulation?
I think it makes it a lot clearer. The way it's written.
Sure.
In some places, I feel like under the point of contact, B, I think it could have been left to maintain school stability instead of to implement the educational stability plan, but it's probably.
People
splitting
like to
hairs.
wordsmith things.
Yeah.
Just like we do. They like put in their own words, so.
Well, and it's hard for kids in foster care to maintain sometimes that school stability. So for me, I actually like the educational stability because of the numerous homes sometimes our kids are in. So.
Okay. Hearing no more comments or questions. That was 741. So Krista said 742 and 743 were not listed on the agenda. Can you please add those for a discussion on the next agenda? Okay. Moving on, the next is the high-tech Verkada cameras. Dr. J, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we went through,
Gotta hold it down. It really just needs to stand.
okay. So I wanted to update with the quotes that I saw originally, and these are in line with that. One of the reasons that the quote went higher was the addition of the high school parking lot. High school parking lot is quite expensive, as you saw, and that's because of the lack of power and the lack of internet in the parking lot. So there's only so much you can do with the Wi-Fi capabilities, especially at such a far distance away from some kind of router or switch. So to do something in the high school parking lot would be, I think, a phase 2 or phase 3 type thing down the road. Also, McDowell Mountain's cameras on, right now are sufficient for people coming onto the campus, seeing them as they're entering. There's only really one point of contact, one point of entry in there, which is actually quite far away from the classrooms. And we would be reinforcing that lobby as well as part of the consolidation. So the quotes here are really for the high school and the middle school, which will become McDowell Mountain next year. So the high school campus, because of its size, you can see the quote is the highest at $249,000, and that is, again, to do all of the work outside, to create that barrier of really motion detection, streamlining the system so that the cameras can be viewed by going to a website versus an app that's currently on the computers, which, from time to time might need to be updated, or an update from a software comes out that maybe it's not compatible with anymore. So I think going through a web-based is better. Second, it gives us the opportunity to see footage from home and off campus, which we can't do currently. It allows for first responders to have access to the cameras as they arrive or even prior to that. So I think it's where we need to be as far as in concept of where we need to be. The middle school came in obviously lower, mainly because it's a self-contained campus. It's not as much space to do, and that came in at $83,000 to update the middle school campus. So with that, I guess I'm looking for direction on, moving forward. We did find out that high tech is a part of a co-op, one GPA or Mojave, one of them. Yeah, one of them. And Verkada is, regardless of, so you have two groups here. You have high tech that's going to come in and do all the work, the cabling, the installation, all that, and then you have the cameras are from Verkada. So regardless of who we go with for installation, if Verkada are the cameras that we want, which is what I think is best for our district, those camera prices are not going to change, obviously, from one vendor to another. It really comes down to, do we want to move forward with high tech as part of the competitive pricing through the co-op for their services, which is listed, I believe, on professional services on each page, and you can see what that entails, and then professional services costs. So the cameras for the high school come to $169, and the services come to $64. So that would be the piece that we could look at, what other options there are for that. We've used high tech in the past for the cabling, so they again have some experience working on our campuses.
I worry that the bandwidth that this is going to take on a every day, every hour basis is going to degrade the classroom bandwidth.
I don't think so, because one is, I think part of this we talked about was the cabling itself. Was part of it was to upgrade where needed. We have, I believe, Cat 5 throughout from the last camera upgrade, And so if there were areas where they have to put new cabling, they would go to Cat 6, which is more efficient and better. As far as us being the few of us on the website, watching the cameras, we're already working with Cox Communications on a upgrade anyway for next year. Mr. Alexander's been working with Fruth Group on that, and we're looking at moving to doubling our speed for next year, which is not a very large expense, but we are getting to a point where we've kind of outgrown our bandwidth,
Right.
and it's time to upgrade it.
And will we reallocate bandwidth from McDowell Mountain to the middle school, or?
I think, we'll have to check and make sure how that works, but in theory, it sounds like it would. And one of the things also that the Fruth Group has been able to do is work with our E-rate money, which we also have a secondary consultant, Nicely Done, who we work with as well and I call kind of both of them when I need a question answered, make sure it comes out the same answer. But I'm gonna let Chris speak to it a little bit, he has a little more information.
Yeah, I've had meetings over the last couple of weeks with both Nicely and Fruth. And to Kane's point, they are both on the same page in regards to what our capabilities are and spending our E-rate money and where that should be allocated. We currently don't have, there's category 1 and category 2. We don't have category 1 needs as far as E-rate, but Fruth is going to be coming in over the next couple of weeks to do an assessment of our kind of our hardware with our wands and USBs and things of that sort to maybe possibly relocate some of those items from McDowell to the other campuses, since we'll have far fewer students at McDowell next year, just with it being just preschool. And obviously we'd be adding students to this campus as well as the current middle school campus. So those devices, from what Fruth has told us, is that they're not very old and they should easily be relocated, so it wouldn't be an additional cost. Same thing with Cox. Both Nicely and Fruth agree that we currently have 1 gig at each site, and they say that that's putting a strain on our speed, given that all of our students are one-to-one. Our teachers utilize the technology quite frequently, and so forth. So when you look at 1 gig just for, say, this campus, and you're adding another 250 students to that with one-to-one technology capabilities, that's going to put it even at a larger strain. So our current contract with Cox, I believe, runs through 25-26. I think that was just signed in March of 21, so just a year ago. So we still have some time left on that. But in our contract, it states that we can negotiate to fix our speed. And it increases, I think it's like a couple $100 a month to double our speed. So like Kane said, it would not be a significant increase to our monthly cost to do that.
And additionally, we will have teachers now casting a little bit on that middle school campus, which we're piloting for the rest of the campuses. And anytime you cast, you're going to use up some bandwidth there as well. They will have options, though. They will be able to still plug in their computer through HDMI to the television, okay? But they'll also be able to, with the iPad, cast up there through AirPlay. So we hope that the vast majority of usage will be wired through HDMI on their screens. There's another way you can also do that, where there's that we're going to look at, is there's apps where on a Windows device, a $14 app, it allows you to cast so I could cast my phone to my computer, and then my computer is wired. So you're still casting, but I don't know if that saves us any, but it might be a convenience issue for some of the teachers that live on their laptop and don't want to have to switch inputs and play with the remote and things like that, which is a small cost. So
Even 2 gig in today's world, it's kind of for 1,500 people on a good day is, there's some question about whether that's enough in terms of what we're going to be doing 5 years from now.
yeah, we can go to 10 is what and so what we'll do is we will get prices, we'll take a look at what it costs, and then based on that and our usage, we'll make a decision that is, make sure that we're working at a good rate of speed. throw that. But at the same time, as much as I love all the tech, I do think we also need to put it away from time to time and do some other things. And so we're gonna be pushing a little bit more on project-based and some newer ways of doing things that are really older ways of doing things.
That's great, but your needs, you wanna cover the peak.
Correct.
We can work down here, but then there's that time when we gotta
Yes,
be up here.
testing, stay testing.
And, yeah, that's a good example of
Yeah.
one. And Cox service here in Fountain Hills is sketchy to begin. We're installing new cabling part of Mesa that I work in. So the streets are all messed up, but it's gonna be high end fiber.
Mhm.
We don't have that here.
No.
So getting 10 gig, you do a speed check, and you don't have it anywhere near 10 gig,
Two.
right? So, I just worry a little bit about Cox and their ability to provide us 10 gig on a regular basis.
Sure.
Again, they peak and depending on the time of day, but we're in a position in Fountain Hills where we're not first in the list.
And we don't really have any other option.
We used to have, telephone, we had T1 line in day one, those days are gone, thank goodness. But I just wanna make sure that,
We have to upgrade, we'll upgrade using, all of our consultants looking at our usage, our data, and, we'll try to find a good medium of cost versus effectiveness, absolutely.
it is a cost, don't get me wrong, but when you divide that up against 1,500 users every day, that extra $300 in this case is, pennies per person.
Absolutely. Mhm. So we'll bring more back once we have it, but we just wanted to share out that, as far as the cameras go, they're all that's wired, so we're talking very few users, really security office at each site using it, and then as indications come up, and for a lot of us on our phones, we may or may not be on school network, based on, it doesn't work really well wireless in certain places, so it will just give us, the idea behind this is an invisible barrier around the perimeter of the school to keep people from, giving us a faster response time if someone were to come on campus. And I'm also looking at an app for the future, which I have a meeting coming up with. I get in trouble with that, but with an app that allows you to put the lockdown, put the school on lockdown through that. We use Remind for that now, so if we had to do something like that, we can hit all teachers through Remind through a text. We brought that in this year, and that has worked well for me in the past in lockdown situations. But this takes it to another level. It's an actual lockdown button that teachers would have, staff would have available. The training comes in, though, of when to push that button, right? Because when people have access to that, then you have sometimes a few letters going home to the community of why it was pushed. But we want to hear more about what they do. I just saw this recently at a site visit, and I was really impressed with it, so. Yeah. So any other questions about, I guess, discussion of where you want me to go with this?
So I have a couple questions. The first one, I had asked at the last board meeting what our cameras cost in 2020. I haven't gotten that yet.
I just got information back from Richie and forwarded that information to Alicia, so she is working on that.
Okay. And then, just to be clear, in what we saw at the last board meeting versus what we're talking about today, no indoor cameras are in discussion, that they're all outdoor, correct? Based
I
on,
have a quote for indoor cameras.
well, but what
Yeah.
we're talking about in that reduced price. So what is going to, are we going to be running dual systems with
Yes.
indoor and outdoor?
Yep, we'll have to. But there's a difference. One is, this is step one in fortifying the campus, right? So a lot of things that happen are coming in from the outside, whether it's, somebody coming on the campus, vandalism, whatever it is, theft, things of that nature. So this is step one. Step two, when we have additional funding, is to do the inside cameras. So we're all in the same system. But, you know, right now, I just believe that having the exterior, eyes on the exterior, keeping people out is essential. We have, as far as indoor cameras now, remember, everything we have is reactive. We're gonna go on there because something happened. We've tried to move towards that, where the security offices will now have the television set up where they'll have outdoor cameras on 2 TVs, indoor cameras on 2 TVs. There might be 2 keyboards and you know, mice there for them to work through, but with some, you know, training, it's not too challenging to deal with. It would be more about, you know, if first responders come in, they would have to then go and be in a system that's on site, because those indoor cameras are on a program that we can't access from the outside.
And then the new Little Falcons preschool would only have the old system.
For right now.
Okay.
I mean, if
Just
we want-
clarifying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can update that, but the, you know, it really comes down to, I think that's a minor cost to put 1 or 2 cameras there. And so my intent is to go back to them and say, can you give me, you know, on the main entry, you know, like facing outward, you know, coming in, that we have that. But the hard part about that is that you're gonna have, you know, people coming and going all day, every day.
Right.
So it's a little different in that situation. Since the rest of the building is locked up, and there should be nobody going through there, and they should never be in that side of the building. It's a little different than at the high school, where someone may leave a door unlocked, or prop a door, or do something like that, and someone could get in. So this is, yeah,
Wanted to be clear, what we saw at our last meeting on the screen is vastly different than what we're looking at
On the quote.
on the quote.
and
Because we're not looking at indoor, we're not looking at all
They showed us
buildings.
different things, the
Yes.
different maps and all the different
Yes.
color
But
coding.
but that's part of the whole project. And so we're
Sure.
phasing it, where
Yep.
originally when I started, my hope is to get it all done this year, right? But now I don't have that ability to, so, or I, you know, possibly, but then, you know, you have to cut other places. So
Right.
I think the key is to have outside early detection. So what we can do is, you know, my intent when talking to Scott was, when you have the maps of McDowell Mountain currently, what would it cost to put a couple cameras up top looking in each direction for early detection for that site as well? So that we feel that all 3 sites have that. That was my intent to do that anyway. But I wanted you to see, you know, the quote you had last time is 800.
Yep.
Which was a shock to me.
Yes.
That was internal, parking
Parking
lot,
lot,
football
everything, yeah.
field, whole district, right? To get the whole district up to the best possible system. Yeah. So if we do 3 now and, you know, 2 down the road, another 3 some other day, you know, then you're where you're at.
And High Tech is the one that did or procured the previous cameras in 2020 and did the wiring and all the
That's my
services?
understanding, yes.
Okay. And so we don't intend to get multiple bids for their work because
I-
they're part of that co-op?
No, I'm asking you guys what you would like. What I'm gonna say, from what I've heard from our finance people, is that the Verkada cameras are not gonna change in price, right? That they are what they are. So what we would be doing is going out to other companies to come out and come back and see what would it cost to install them. And then I gotta check and see if Verkada sells to that company. You know, I don't know how that works. I'm sure some companies, you only are tied to certain camera manufacturers and things like that.
And so you have looked at other cameras and Verkada's just the one that you,
I did in 2019 when we did it the last time, and like I said, I was disappointed in what we ended up with, because I wasn't here at that time.
well,
But
was that a recommendation of High Tech? Or
Nope.
was that, okay.
that was me playing with the camera. They put one in the lobby of the high school for about 2 months, and I could literally, you know, on a touch screen, pull up the camera and just draw a little box on the door, and anyone walk through that door, I got a notification. A lot of the other like the cameras we have now, we can't do anything like that.
And is High Tech able to utilize any of the work that they did in 2020 to install these new cameras? Like any
Yeah,
of
they're
the
gonna
wiring?
use, yeah, so that becomes a question, do we wanna upgrade to Cat 6 or stay at 5E, I think is what it's called now. I've said at this time, I would like to make it just work on a budget. And if you think 5E will work with this for now, then let's just keep it the way it is. So we're not trying to go back and change out things, but again, this is just a quote. We haven't even got to a point of serious conversation with them.
Okay, yeah, and I do have some concerns with some of the numbers on here. The 10-year camera license, 16 of them for 20,000, is that the warranty?
Yeah, because each camera has a 10-year license you have to pay for. And then if it breaks, right, they give you the newest cameras as you go.
Yes, and in the terms and conditions, it says that it's a, project basis. So if one breaks and they come back and they replace it, are we then paying again for that kind of service? Is that another project?
He talked about that at the, I thought he was clear on that one. Yeah.
It's maintenance and support. So software is going to be upgraded whenever it's necessary through the 10 years. And this, like I said before, 10 years from now, no one's going to guess what technology is going to be. 5E is okay today, it won't be a year from now, but you got to make a commitment someplace. And whether we go to 7 or 10 doesn't exist today. You only have a couple choices. So.
Have you talked to any schools that are using the Mercado campus to find out like the service, the maintenance, like are they getting good customer service, are the cameras working the way that the Mercado said it would?
In some of the forums I've been a part of, like, I've heard some of the superintendents talk about new camera software. I wrote it down at one point. I asked them about it, and it is part of what they do. So, no, I haven't had any specific conversations with anybody at this time, other than, again, one, my utilization of it for a period of time years ago, and two, when I went through the demo with them and they showed me, real world situations and how the ease of use as an administrator, just a lot easier than what we currently do.
I would just like to.
We can do that.
Yeah, I would like to get some actual real feedback, if people, one, thought it was worth money, two, are they getting the service that Mercado promises? Like, if they've had a camera break, how quickly has Mercado replaced it? Like, are they on the ball? Are they getting the customer service if there are glitches? Do they have a lot of cameras that break? Have the cameras lasted? Are they surviving weather? Things like that, just real world, especially with the predicament that we're in with the field. Like, I just don't want to invest all of that money and then, they go in and we're like, okay, well, now this one's out, or that one didn't survive the sun beating on it, or whatever. I just would like to hear real.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you that even though we have, like I said, we're in the early phases of this. One, I want you guys to hear what we're trying to do. Two, get a feel for it. But I'll just go back to Fruth, when we did Fruth, I asked Chris to get some testimonials from different groups. He did, got good. I got a share back that we have not heard about technology this year once, which is no news is good news, right? So we feel like that's heading in the right direction. So we always, get some kind of feedback.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they are who they say they are, and that their product works the way they say it will. And that, 5 years from now granted technology changes, like Dana says, I mean, that's all, we're never gonna catch up to technology. But I just don't wanna be having this conversation and they're like, well, we didn't really promise that. It's like, no, you really did. So I just wanna hear from other people using it.
Just to make sure we have this already budgeted.
It is budgeted.
At the 300.
Which again, this is why I'm very happy with where our finance has been, is because when he and I spoke about this, in the earliest conception of the idea, he immediately budgeted for it. So when I asked him, are you okay with this? He said, well, yeah, I already budgeted. Well, okay, so that's a green light. Yeah, we're good. So I guess, do we want to bring out other cabling companies to go through this process and and go from there. So I guess that's my question.
Well, if they're on Mojave or the other co-ops, they've already gone through the process. And the Mojave, I don't know how many people are involved, how many school districts are involved in Mojave these days, but it used to be hundreds.
In our procurement training, he spoke to the competitive pricing that they offer. So like I said, this slows down, which I'm fine with. I want to be clear.
Well, it looks like the big expense is the cameras.
The cameras,
I see that. And school safety is a top priority, arguably the top priority. I guess my concern is, how are these cameras truly, like, not just reactive as well? Because we would still have to call the sheriff's department and things like that. Like, I think I've mentioned to you before,
Well,
the school resource officers, I think, are a great option, and there's grants for that. Have we really looked at that option? Because having armed personnel at the school would deter both outside and inside.
We have one shared between two sites. I'd be all for having one at each site. But when you have one and schools don't, that grant money is going to go to schools that don't have one, right? Our town pays for ours, which is great. Love to have a second one, love to have a third one, no issue with that. But the difference here is that in most systems, you're going to find out somebody's on, and again, nothing's foolproof, so let's be clear about that. You're predicting the unpredictable. That's what you're doing here. And the more things are in place to predict the unpredictable, you hopefully come out of it going, glad we did that, right? Glad we thought of that. But if something were to happen, by the time you know what's happening and you go into lockdown and all those things are happening, getting the cameras online, finding what happened, okay, is very time consuming, especially in our current system. Like, I can't fast forward. The last time I used it, I couldn't fast forward. So we had something happen, someone had to watch 8 hours, spend 8 hours in front of the screen watching, right? Now, that could be a software update, there could be things we're working with Ruth on those things when they pop up. But this is, the idea is that if somebody came through an area that, in a time frame where no one should be there, right? That we all will get notifications. And then from there, the officer, the administration, everybody gets that notification. So now you're speeding up the process of security. Can you go out? We have somebody coming on the campus. Can you go see what that is, whatnot? And then my understanding is once that person's been picked up, you can now follow them everywhere they go from camera to camera to camera, is what he was explaining to me. So early detection of an incident is what's most important in these situations, especially in a town like Fountain Hills, where the response time to the high school, I'm guessing, would be a minute or less, right? So if you could save a minute of time by having early detection, that could make all the difference.
And following where they go, if you can truly do that.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of places to ditch in the high school campus, and if you see them come on the campus and lose them, well, that's a big campus to be tracking somebody down.
So the faster we can go into lockdown, the faster we can get police on site and have that. Now, once they come onto the campus, we wouldn't have that ability. We'd have to switch cameras, obviously, at that point. But as they're coming on campus, we'd be able to get some early detection. When the whole system's in place, then yes, then you have that ability to just go boom, boom, wherever they go. It has the facial recognition, all that kind of stuff. It's able to follow somebody around wherever they go. And he did show me an incident of that in the demo.
Didn't they mention that it would be connected directly to police also?
Yeah, so they would have an account access, just like we do. So Amber would have on her device, she would get an automatic alert, security, all 3 administrators. And so if it's, the middle school's there, those 2 administrators as well, their security guard. So you have 9 people in the know right now. And then Amber can call that in immediately. She knows exactly where to go, check it out. So I think it's a step in the right direction. I'd like to do the whole thing, obviously, but 800,000 is not something depending on our budget at this time, but starting with the perimeter and then moving inward, I think makes sense. So I could say we did this process 3 years ago. We looked at several different cameras, and my vote on that committee was for CADA. I thought that's what we were doing. And when I found out that Panasonic and they don't have that ability, it was disappointing.
Can we add to, for full disclosure to the community, on the online board packet version, what the original high-tech presentation was, and then what we received as the addendum, as ways to help show the community that funds are necessary potentially to provide that transparency?
800-some thousand, that we can only do 333,000. So, and as for whether we use high tech or somebody else, high tech's part of it, it's only 83,000. 250,000 of that's cameras, so I don't know that you're gonna find a better, a company to come in and give you much lower. I mean, even if you cut, 10-15,000 off of it, I mean, sure, it's 10-15,000, but what's the quality of work that you're getting? So I don't know that high tech's the issue, or gonna make or break it. It just, I wanna know more about the service.
So what I'll do is I'll reach out to some Verkada customers, superintendents that utilize it, get some testimonials, bring those back, and then we can go from there. The idea is to get these, if we decide to move forward with it, would be to get this going as part of the consolidation work and have them online by the end of the year and into next year is, just another thing that we can share with parents that, hey, we're heading in the right direction in these areas. Between, a police officer on campus, multiple security guards on the high school, middle school campus, administrators out and about, even like I said, it's a small thing, but even, I'd like to do it more, but even on the days when I'm walking Frank's a deterrent to a stranger coming on campus. There's a dog on campus. What does that dog do? I don't know what that dog does. So the more, on my visit to Red Mountain yesterday, they had 6 dogs on the campus at one time, which seems like a lot, but they have 3,500 kids, right? So the more, I think just the more little things you do, additional police presence in the parking lots on time, downtime, patrolling, people on golf carts patrolling. I've always offered for years to parents at 2 different schools, a walking club, come in and walk. No one wants to do it. I've been trying for years to get that off the ground, but no one wants to come in and deal with student discipline and things like that. So we take it one step at a time. I think moving in this direction is the right move from a school security standpoint, and then put in phase 2, phase 3 a little bigger.
Well,
I do believe that Town Council member Brenda Calvinakis is working on getting us a second officer at our schools. And I would like to look into that option more because, again, I think that having basically armed security on site is probably one of the biggest deterrents, both, again, for inside threats and outside, which unfortunately a lot of these incidences come from inside.
I can assure you that the community in the past, at least when I did some work on this, we're very supportive of each site having an officer on the campus.
And to clarify, the school safety program will not fund another one for us?
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that when you're up against applications, right, and a school doesn't have an officer, and they're requesting one, and a school has one. Right now, we have one shared, obviously. I'm not saying it's not possible. We're looking into it, but I just don't know if we're going to qualify, is what I'm saying.
I would encourage us to exhaust that option for sure.
Well, and MCSO also offered every 3 to 4 months to have a K-9 come out. So, we would have increased presence there if that's something you wanted to pursue.
I feel comfortable keeping high tech and not having to worry about getting other bids because I think, Chris, if we can make it clear to people reading minutes that by being part of the co-op, there has been minimum 3 bids, if not more already. We may not be doing
that's why I was glad Gary was able to speak to everyone about the process, because, again, as a high tech is going to want, they're going to want to make sure that as an organization, being a part of a co-op, that their pricing is competitive, their quality is solid, their service is good, because as Gary talked about, if somebody doesn't follow through with that, that goes out to everybody, right? And so it really does put an emphasis on, making it easy for a small district like us to move forward with projects, knowing that the process has been done correctly, it is competitive, and the product's going to be good at the same time. Because I do worry about, on certain things, taking the lowest bid and then having to go back and fix so many things. We thought we were saving money, but in the end, we actually spent more money doing it that way, so, yeah. Okay, I just wanted to share that.
Just looking into the future, which I like to do when it comes to technology, face recognition is probably about 3 years away. That'll be a software upgrade.
This does it.
I know, but we're not, but it's two things. Camera that looks at the face and then the database that it compares to.
Right.
That database is coming from, class pictures, it's coming from.
Sure, that might be outdated.
Facebook and Indeed, all the rest of those kind of things, so, that's gonna be, something that we're gonna have, not me, because I'll be gone, but.
He just means not on this board.
Oh.
He's not gonna be gone.
Well, that's,
I'm
okay.
living on borrowed time now, so whatever happens.
All right.
All right, any other questions? All right, hearing none, vacant building option.
Quick question, is this going to be discussed again, or is it going to be to vote next time?
The Verkada, no,
This
it'll
can-
still probably be a discussion
Okay.
item, because I still want more
Yes,
information.
okay,
on
thank you,
it.
yeah, Sam.
Okay, so I want to bring to, again, the discussion, vacant building options, because if we, the committee, the board committee that was put in place last year and then again this year, all my understanding is that they do believe we should move forward with making a decision on selling or land leasing at least Four Peaks and possibly the McDowell Mountain campus to a developer. In order to do that, it needs first board approval to go for an election, and then it needs voter approval to do that in November. So time is flying by, and if we're going to want to do something in November, we probably need to start having those discussions now. I've alerted all of our renters at Four Peaks that at this time we're not renewing anything beyond December of '23. So we've not gone into anything beyond that number, so that we have an opportunity to decide what we want to do with the building. So I guess I'm just looking for guidance on what do we want to do, especially with Four Peaks, being that I'll be honest, I came in to this position with the idea of saving both buildings. I've looked at Four Peaks especially and got a chance to really look at the amount of work and the sewage issues and all the things there, and I don't believe it's a savable location.
I agree. I think that Fort Peaks probably needs to be leveled and then something else done with the property. My hope was always that the town would eventually choose to buy it or do something with it with the park. So just to reiterate, I know you guys have heard it, but we only own the two buildings, Boys and Girls Club and the Four Peaks building and the parking lot. We don't own anything behind it, not the park or the soccer field. So we're literally this strip of land. I don't see us doing anything with that building in the future. It needs too many repairs. It needed too many repairs when Four Peaks was already moved over to the middle school or separated between McDowell and the middle school. So, I want to see us put money into the buildings that we're using and, upgrade things for our kiddos who are actually attending the schools. And so having that building sit vacant is an eyesore for the community that's over there. It's an area that has attracted vandalism and naughty behavior. You know, the town just upgraded part of the park, which is really nice, but that doesn't benefit our building, so I think it's a waste of money.
One thing I want to add is, and there's no guarantees on this, but going to a meeting with school facility board not long ago, they've shared that some of these buildings that require so much work, they're not gonna do that. They're gonna raise it and start over, you know? And I don't see them coming in to fix it, number one, if the time ever came, and number two, to spend what it would cost to get that building up to date, just up to date, that's still not gonna sell the building to families and people looking. It's an old concept, right? It's past its time, and if we're gonna get to a point where enrollment is bustling and we have to do something and open a school, I don't think that Four Peaks is the answer.
It would have to be rebuilt anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Who knows what the future needs of the school is gonna be.
Right.
You know, the big problem with both Dow and Four Peaks is the zone. So right now, it's zone schools. So it would take a change in zoning and, more importantly, a change of the general plan, which requires a vote of the public. So under those circumstances, they have to be schools, and some values nothing.
But don't you think it would be easier to have, don't you think the town would be more open to rezoning those two areas than rezoning like over where the Aurora is and stuff?
Well, easier, but still very doubtful, especially since it requires a change in the general plan. That takes a majority vote of the public, that'll never happen.
So maybe we have Grady come speak to, or someone at town come speak to us about the process and at a future session, because like I said, this is a decision that's gonna take time and a lot of work. I just wanna know if we wanna move forward with that discussion, because I'm gonna have to make some decisions on renters soon. And I've been pretty clear with them about, especially our bigger, ones who've been there the longest or have the most space there, that, just so you know.
I think bringing Grady in is first step.
Okay?
Yeah. I
It's
agree.
really in the town council's hands.
Well, and what are really our options if we don't really own all of it? Like, what are the options that are even on the table for that?
Well, you can raise the building, which we got, Patrick had left a quote for that. It's about $500,000. So you're spending $500,000 of taxpayer money to get rid of a building. Okay, so.
Actually both, each, it's $250,000 for one building and $250,000 for the other one.
Okay. So that's one option, which our finance team has been more, I think they feel is the best option, is to enter into a land lease with a developer, 99 years, something like that, where they would come in and develop the land, most likely with housing.
Again,
But that would take
a change
rezoning.
of the general plan.
Yeah.
So what is our requirement or with Boys and Girls Club currently, our commitment to them?
So we are with them for 30 more years to 2050, I believe. And at that time, the district will be able to make a decision of whether we want to renew with them or not. There is some provisions in there, we've had our attorney look at it, that basically state, like there's certain things that, like, I don't believe they can sublease the building to another organization. If they ever go out of business or decide to leave, then the building comes back to us. The renovations and all that comes back to the school. They did that knowing that there's a possibility 50 years from now. But that gym would be then 50 years old by then, right? So I think they got their thoughts, they get their use out of it. So that's where we're at now. This would be more of, with a developer in housing, there's an option of, money up front, and then payments for the 99 years. So it comes down to how valuable the land is to a developer, what they can do with it. But once we're not asked, we would not go to the town, is my understanding, and say, this is what this is going to be. We're going and saying, you authorize us to sell or land lease it to a developer as we see fit. And so getting permission. So one of the things I'm saying is if there's concern in the community that we have this vacant building, we're not doing anything with it. This is us saying we're trying to do something with it. And once we get authorization, my understanding is we'd have 10 years to make a decision of what we want to do.
And the cost to put McDowell on the same ballot as Four Peaks
Be the
would be
same.
the same.
Yeah.
Once you call for an election, it's the same, whatever you put on there.
So if you wanted to do a bond and override again, you could do that. If you wanted to do, just one or the other, you could do that. There's a possibility, since the town might be going out for something, that we could split the cost with them. And I believe it would be 50-50 is my understanding. So more to come. I'd have to work with Stiefel and our groups that helped us with the last election. But it's already almost February, and the election will be here sooner than we think. So if we want to move forward with that, I just think we need to start having maybe a to-do list of what you want us to do and bring back to you to be able to make that decision. So Grady, I think, is a great start.
Yeah, I think we start with Grady.
I could have, we could possibly have Jeremy, who is one of our consultants, who's done a lot of land lease deals. He's, he could come speak to what the benefits are and what he thinks we might be able to do with the land, if that's something you'd like. We could do that, put that on the list. Other ideas you have?
How many renters do we have in there right now?
Well, we have,
20, maybe? I don't know.
is it that many?
No.
No.
Are we
I would
charging-
say it's under 10.
10.
Really?
Yeah.
Are we charging?
I can only.
I've been there in a
But
while.
it feels like 20. It feels like 20.
I thought for the Boys and Girls Club, we were giving them some.
Well, that's a whole separate building,
separate.
and that's $1.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that's a whole separate
And I understand
entity.
supporting Boys and Girls Club, but they are a business, and so, couldn't we have charged them competitive rates?
Well, that
Well,
was
that
20
was
years
done
ago.
Yeah, I
20
know.
years ago.
Now we're stuck in it for
Yeah.
30 more years.
Even Dana wasn't here then. You were?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I know,
But that was more of an issue of, we have a building we're not using, and
That
this
was our
would,
administrative building,
Do they
this
at
would,
least cover all the,
yes.
They pay for everything.
they paid for
Custodial and
the,
everything, okay.
Yeah,
they
we don't
paid
pay for
for,
it.
Triple net lease for $1.
Yeah, we don't pay for anything there.
okay.
and they paid for the new district office to be put back in the position it is today. So, yeah, there's nothing we can do about those things, but I do want to just get kind of because we'll also want to bring that committee back and get feedback again from them, possibly if we need to. So, I guess we just want to make a to-do list today of things you want us to do to bring back to you.
And we'd have to make a decision by the end of May or the end of June.
I believe there's one in August that I just got an email for, and I think, when did that have to be done
But I
by?
thought we weren't,
February.
Yeah, it
I
was
didn't
like,
think we could do a school election.
you
in-
can't,
so
but
yeah.
I got one for August,
Okay.
I didn't understand why.
I think it's June that we
I-
have to give our answer.
I
So
do.
we would want to
Yeah.
have it approved by May.
May.
Yeah.
So,
I know, I'm going to say again, our biggest problem with those two sites is their status on the general plan. And that's the overlay of the town.
Mhm.
And that is a political hotbed.
Okay,
Tom Hills always has been. To get another residential lot in this town right now, my feeling, not going to happen.
and I don't think that we would, right now, with all these things that we have to do, with funding and not having the funding, I would have a hard time saying to the community, we can't do this, and that, but we're gonna hold those buildings at this time. So I think that makes it hard. I think the plan originally was, that there may be money to do that, and there isn't. So I think we move forward with, I guess, gathering, so we want to speak to get the town involved, find out from Jeremy how these things work, as far as a sale or a land lease. Is there anything else that you'd like us to prepare to bring back to a discussion?
I mean,
That sounds
do the three of you have any interest in hearing from Grady regarding the 3 plots of land? That's, that was one of the things that you guys have sat through the meetings before. It's a very contentious issue. It really isn't, that's really not what I would like to see happen. I would really like to see something happen to Four Peaks and McDowell. But if you want any information, regarding those 3 plots of land, if Grady's coming, that would be the time to find out, so, no.
And I can share there is a developer interested in both properties right now that has met with me.
Both properties as in Four Peaks and McDowell?
Yes, is ready to bring you ideas and drawings and.
What happens to the preschool?
Well, so my thought is that you have a couple options. One is I believe that we would have, I would hope we'd have some influence in, this is a great opportunity to keep that wing there as part of the develop, because I don't believe that they would want to raise the whole building. I think there's use of that for whatever residential community they put in, that there could be some amenities used in that building structure. So my hope would be that the preschool would stay as an amenity for people in that neighborhood and in that new community, especially if they're lower cost homes, younger families coming in, having daycare right on site might be an attractive amenity to that developer. Second thing would be if the answer is no, we're just going to do what we do, the money we bring in, we would be able to possibly do an add-on to McDowell Mountain, the new McDowell Mountain for, additional building like this here was added on, something like that to bring in preschool. Yeah.
So is that developer looking at a land lease option? Or
Yes, 99-year.
Okay.
And if the time comes, we could have them come speak to you as well, if that's something you'd like to do.
Okay, I'll go first. Grady's got to be first.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll start with Grady and Jeremy, and at our next session like that, would that be an appropriate time for them to come speak, or would it be better in a regular board meeting?
I would, we have our board retreat and then our business meeting. So really, the work study session would be a much better time to have them come.
So Krista will.
In February, yeah,
if you
February
could-
22nd.
She'll set up, if Jeremy can't make it in person, we'll have him on digital, through Google Meet. But I think he'll come out here to speak to you, because I think he has a lot of experience doing this, and he's been able to answer a lot of questions I've had about it. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right, it's 7 o'clock,
Yeah.
so unless there's any other pressing question on that. Okay, hearing none. Future action, if there's something you'd like to see on a future agenda, please contact Dr. J or Krista. Dates of upcoming meetings, we'll have our board retreat February 6th at 4 o'clock. Dana, are you going to be able to make that?
Question.
Okay, well, get with
I mean,
Krista.
I'll be late.
Okay, well, we can start with like the SWOT, because I would like the other 3 board members to go through the SWOT, so. And then Wednesday, February 8th will be our regular business meeting at 6 o'clock, and then Wednesday, February 22nd will be our work study session for that month. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You're outnumbered, Dana. Overruled.
Thank you all.
Dana.
Thank you.
So funny.